Day 3 of the April 99 7-day retreat in Springwater. Are we here? Caught up in thought? Expecting? Or with the wind and the movements of people? The breathing? A sensitive, sensing organism. Thinking about it, or just awareing what's there? Not listening to the breathing or to the wind, but letting breathing and wind be heard, felt, touched, in presence. Without grasping, without resisting. In last night's meeting, we talked a lot about awareness. What is it? Is it always there? It is always there, some people say. And others say, well, why, if it is always there, why isn't it there as I'm dreaming? Why does it allow itself to be covered up? Is it a process? Is there a process of getting there to this awareness? A path, a practice, a life? And why, if there is awareness of fear, of anger, why doesn't that stuff go away? Because even though there is awareness, something continues or comes back. All these questions are familiar, aren't they? They thread themselves through our retreat life and maybe also through our daily life, unless we forget all about it, because we get so engaged with daily relationships, activities, family, office. I was trying to get at this, I will try to get at this in a different way. I've not done it like this before, to see whether some order can be brought into this confusion about awareness. Knowing full well the risk of establishing some system, some conceptual thing, but no matter what is said in a talk, that risk is always there. remembering the thing, making a concept out of it, and trying to apply it in a non-living way. So, this is tentative and open to discussion. At one extreme, there is our total oblivion. Human beings, total oblivion, ours, we are human beings. Total oblivion to what is going on in this body-mind. It seems not a flicker of awareness, stupefied, as it were, by the creations of the brain, with an organism supporting the images, the fantasies, the ideas, the ideologies, supporting it with energy of attachment, hatred, support, fight. Not knowing, in the truest sense of the word, not knowing what we're doing. And at the same time believing that we know what we're doing. Not able to see that we're engaged in an artificial play created by the mind, not just this mind, but collective mind. And examples are our beliefs, our religious, political beliefs, our biases, our prejudices. One person has been writing to me and coming to retreat, bringing up this topic. He's gone to retreat for decades. He says, I've never realized how prejudiced I am. Never realized it. I thought I was free of that because I have friends among minorities. I work with them. Yet when I enter a bus, I count how many non-whites are on the bus. And are they going to take over this country? Such thoughts come to the mind, seen for the first time. Now this is not a case of this total oblivion anymore. But a lot of us live in that. Otherwise there could not be these horrendous wars and conflicts that shake the world, shake human beings to bits. And one doesn't need to go far away. One can watch in oneself the attachment. One doesn't even realize it's an attachment to a belief, because what I believe is true. And if you contradict it, go against it, the body begins to generate energy to defend and to attack, to preserve the security of the system. What I believe is right about my practice, my family life, my office, you name it. You fill in the blanks. I can't do all of that. And the blanks filled in through experience, direct looking, direct living through, defending a system one is attached to, as though one's life depended on this belief. And not realizing that this is what is going on. Defensiveness, support of the religious or the political system, or ideas about how to raise children. The right way to do a job in the kitchen, in the house, in the garden. The tenaciousness with which this body-mind attaches to its ideas of what is right. It seems to need that for living in a sense of security. There's a lot invested, because if it is questioned, the system, my system of working, what is generated in the body, you watch it. At best, a mild irritation or outrage. And with that, the formation of enemies, people to be not trusted, to be banded against, allied against with other people. Talk about those people who don't do it right, who don't believe the right thing. So we were saying, at the very extreme of this thing of awareness, I don't know what to call it, I want to be careful with this, is total oblivion to the way we live, enmeshed like in a sticky spider web in our systems and beliefs and ideas and ways of doing things without awareness. Because if you asked anyone at any one time, no matter how engaged in the structure, the belief, the assumptions, are you aware? I don't know what the response would be. A person would probably say, what are you talking about? Of course I'm aware. But what it may refer to is consciously thinking about oneself as I'm doing this, but not questioning what I'm doing. Sentence comes to mind in this connection. Jesus on the cross, being crucified, tormented, ridiculed, saying, if the translation is correct, "My Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing." There may have been less energy. He was dying when he said that, if he said it. But it's a beautiful thing to say at the moment of being tortured to death. They don't know what they're doing. If that can occur to us at the moment the outrage solidifies against someone or something, do they know what they're doing? Do I know what I'm doing? Then these seemingly solid enclosures of oblivion may crack a bit, and some light come through. Like when a heavily overhung, dark, cloudy sky opens a bit and there's light, illuminating everything. So, coming back once more to this seemingly total oblivion to what is going on, the stupefaction of the mind with its ideas. It's like an anesthesia. And yet, amazingly enough, and not to be explained or causally determined unless you build theories about it, speculate about it, the possibility of a crack in the wall. Sometimes it happens by hearing somebody say something or write something, reading a book which one may already, in tracing it back through memory, have been ready to pick up. Opens a page and something is said that touches one deeply. One may not understand it. I remember the first time I would read some quotes, one in a book by D.T. Suzuki, a quote of somebody, I think Alan Watts quoting Krishnamurti. Not understanding the quote, and yet being deeply touched by reading this thing that I couldn't understand. And with that sort of a kindling of interest, curiosity, where could such a statement come from? How could somebody say something like this? Which is quite in contrast to our usual attitude towards somebody or something we don't understand. We reject it, resist it, fight it. But it happens to all of us at some time or another that we're touched, and don't fight. Don't fight against it. Leave it sit there in the mind, which happened precisely with these quotes. I don't even know what the quotes were anymore. One was about love. The other I don't remember. Not throw it out, to leave it there in its non-understoodness. So, this is maybe how the wall begins to show a little crack. We've read something, heard something, or questioned ourselves for some unexplainable, unfathomable reason. Why am I doing this? Why am I so sad? Why am I suffering? Why do human beings suffer the way we do? Or, who am I? Is that all I am? All this enclosure, this suffering enclosure? Or, as it was in my case, wondering what was the meaning of this chaotic life, this cruel, meaningless, senseless, killing, persecuting, bombing, extinguishing people of different races, different nationalities, and extinguishing the youth of one's own country. Now, many young men came back, some of them. Many, who knows how they died. With a crack in the wall? So, questioning happens to human beings. One cannot predict it, state that it is the rule. It happens to everybody. I don't know these things. I hesitate to make any kind of blanket statements. It has to come from one's experience, one's own, and working with people in this grave matter for over 30 years. Listening to what they report. By trying to get some examples for these stupefying beliefs, keeping the brain don't know how to say it, producing false scenarios about others, about myself. One of the deepest entrenched idea is that I am a separate, freewheeling, free-choosing, free-willing, independent creature. I may concede a few dependencies, but there has grown up this incredible repertoire of pictures about myself, my talents, my looks, my heredity, my family. My gender. My views, my opinions, my associations with social class, religion, and so on, so on, so on. Tremendous amount of pictures about myself. Here in this hall, does one have at times the picture of being a good meditator, better than the others? How I stand out. Or the opposite, being a sad figure, hopeless, I'll never get it. Or the opposite, I gotta get it. Is there imagery? And this imagery can be so subtle, almost transparent as a piece of film so one doesn't see it. But this imagery guides the organism's functions. In pride or dejection, discouragement or energy. That is the amazing thing about the productions of the brain, the images I have about myself. They can generate enormous energies to feel good or the opposite, to feel down, depressed, dejected. Imagery, remembrances, ideas about myself, the generators of limited but powerful energy. The energy of ambition, the energy of wanting, the energy of fearing or angering or hating or loving. I don't mean love in the deepest sense. It's a different energy which does not come out of picture and idea about myself. So are we oblivious to the pictures that guide and energize or de-energize our moment-to-moment living? Are we aware of it? Will there be some light thrown on that while living in a quiet place with quiet people, sitting or walking quietly? So this total oblivion transforms itself into some seeing of what is there. Glimpses, maybe in the beginning like the fireflies in June, lighting up and dark again. Lighting up and dark again. Questioning this whole, not just deep belief and conviction, but all that's invested in it physically, of being somebody, something of my own. And to begin to trace in direct observation that this is all fabrication of thinking and remembering and expecting and anticipating, dreaming, fantasizing. That is the stuff the me is made of. Not this organism. This organism has incredible, complex functions, which proceed, the better, the less adherence and attachment and defense of this me is going on, because that impacts the organism in its normal functioning, begins to tense it up and distort it, create too much energy I want to be this, the ambition, energy. Oh, well, we don't. You can follow this and trace it for yourself. It is so for all of us. So, no longer totally oblivious, no longer totally deluded is what the religious tradition calls it, deluded or living in illusion, which means living in pictures, unseen pictures about myself and the world, churned out by the brain and accompanied by the body. No longer total oblivion, some light, some awareness, some attention given to how a fearful thought arises, and instantly this body responds, reacts physically. Heart pounding, intestines heavy, crampy, stomach queasy. And these physical functions have a way of creating a smog throughout the system, which seem to make it hard to be really totally present, because they tell the organism things like, get away from this, don't feel it, run, avoid it, shut down. Such messages are given by these physical trigger symptoms. And see, the way to be with it is to bring it to light, to feel it, to observe it, rather than condemn it or have opinions about it. That this is bad, this shouldn't be. A meditator on day 3 should not have to deal with smog. Such a bright day. The bright day helps to reveal the smog without condemnation. Just letting it be seen together with a bright light. The clear puddles. I walked through the upper forest this morning. Amazing. The forest is full of puddles. And in the puddles, which are clear, there was no or hardly any wind, are all these old leaves. Bottom of the puddle, shining. All colors of brown and gray, a few yellow ones. So can one observe these old leaves in the inner puddle and make them shine? I'm going too far, I know. It happens. Nobody makes it that way. Because I think people have experienced this at times. The amazing thing, seeing the truth of something about oneself, and it doesn't matter what it is, how self-righteous one is. Caught up in an image, if it is really completely seen defenselessly, there's a new energy enlivening this whole organism, which is not the energy of image, and all these emotions connected with image. Now, here we're coming to this second kind of energy. We talked about the energy of ambition and wanting and fearing, the energy of all this thought-generated stuff, which tires one. It can stimulate one, and it also tires. Energy of thinking and picturing and figuring things out. And then there is another energy. Whether they're ultimately the same, we won't get into philosophical discussions. from pure experience, one realizes there is another energy of looking, of discovering, seeing, attending, awareing. There's a different quality from this energy of ambitioning and jealousing and angering and fearing and desiring, which has the self at its center. All of these emotions are ultimately, if one traces them back carefully, they are serving the self-center to keep on going in ever better ways, or whatever one pictures it to be. But this other energy of looking, wondering, awareing, has no self-center. Or does it? One has to look and discover the self-center if it is hiding there someplace. I want to be the best inquirer. Oh, wasn't that terrific what I just said? Or wasn't it awful? People in group meetings, they will say something which is really worth listening to, and afterwards they tell me, I made a fool of myself. I shouldn't have said anything. So see how the mind can be sabotaging. Thought can sabotage the facts of the past. So this, not to assume, because we're calling ourselves a meditative, what do we call ourselves? A center for meditative inquiry. Because we are engaging here in meditative inquiry, therefore there's no self-center. Well, I don't know whether anybody thinks that. If we're watching it all, one discovers that self-center almost at every turn. And that's what makes people so desperate. My God, is it endless? But can you find out, or have you found out for yourself, that really looking and listening, alone or together, somehow or other, it seems to work very well when one questions something together? That there can be, maybe even only for moments at a time, a different energy than the normal energy in which we negotiate our life, relate to each other, or unable to relate to each other. You can call it awareness energy or presence energy, wondering energy. It has an amazing, surprising quality. I have mentioned it at times. Getting quite tired before the 7 o'clock meeting block starts. Yesterday Kyle was here and we were eating in the apartment, and he had brought several things that he wanted to do with me, something, signing income tax forms and ordering something from a catalog for help in the bathroom. And I could, for some reason, I could almost not do it. I was so tired. I said, well, the income tax, we finished that. And of course somebody helped with that down in the village, he didn't. But this, looking at a catalog and deciding, and of course he has more than ever, is this right, or is this the difficulty of deciding on something, and it's too much for me. I said it to him, it's too much. I'm wilting, and we'll do it when I come home. And then the meeting started, and we had a question on awareness, and the wilting was gone. There was this inquiring energy available, overriding all feelings of exhaustion. That's why I dare say these are two different energy functions or systems. We can look at it more if you want to. So, talking about different levels of awareness tentatively, don't nail me on it. The total oblivion, then the cracks in the wall where one sees a little something every once in a while, and then it's gone again, maybe even forgotten. People tell me, they say, I'm coming to retreat, but I had completely forgotten about things. How can I remind myself in my daily life not to forget that there's something more than the hustle, bustle, and whatever goes on for each one of us? So, glimpses and then forgetting again. But it happens that there is more awareing of what we're doing, how we're talking, how we're reacting. Sometimes ex post facto, the scene has happened, we've gotten excited or upset or said something that was not very friendly, and afterwards the whole thing comes to light. Maybe at the moment it begins to come to light, and one may not need to say something, because there is something operating now that already foresees in a new way all the consequences of saying this thing or doing this thing. And I don't want those consequences. I don't want to hurt somebody or push myself. It becomes more transparent, our moment-to-moment reactiveness and the consequences of it from past experience. But also the ability that if there hasn't been any decisive awareness at the moment, decisive meaning not going into the dead end, if that wasn't there, then the ability to follow this irritation, this anger, this fear, follow it, be with it, trace it directly as it happens, learning about it. And by being aware of it, watching it, something may change, may not. If there isn't sufficient energy to aware, then the energy of the fear predominates on the anger, with its own source of energy coming from self-imagery, self-enclosure. Is this too involved, too difficult? No. I'm speaking very fast. So, there's no total oblivion. One is aware that one is about to get oneself into a mess, and here one is. And there is still some awareness, even though it seems to be impossible to extricate oneself at this moment from the mess, and yet awareness of that. And awareness of the tendency to judge it, to reject it, to create new images about oneself, or awareness of the dead end of that and abstaining from that, just letting be what is there, what evolves. So it becomes simpler, cleaner. Sometimes people tell me, I've changed, and yet I don't know how, because I'm still pretty much the same, but something has changed. Maybe less hassling with oneself and with others for the way we are, which reveals itself in awareness. And with less hassling, less energy is given to these reactions. And maybe they have a chance to peter out quicker. Because something that is not energized by thought or reaction, or what would keep it going? What would keep the anger going without the storyline? The memory, the self-image. You have to watch all of that. It's a beautiful thing to watch. without interfering, and to discover without becoming somebody in the process. So, and then there is this possibility in a deep meditation. I'm using those words carefully. Ask me more about it. You can ask me, and then responses will come. In deep meditation, which usually doesn't happen when we're relating with each other, discussing problems, or it may. If that inquiring energy is there, then it does. But if it's relating on a superficial level, that energy, that meditative energy may not be tapped. It is tapped in sitting alone or inquiring together. And in that meditative energy, there may not be any thought to connect with emotions. Or a thought may arise and wonder of wonders, the spark doesn't fly over to the emotion. It's just a thought coming and going. Maybe a twinge of habit which is seen and abates in this energy of being here. With the airplane, it isn't shut out. We're saying airplane, but it isn't an airplane, it's just ooh. So, if this question haunts us, as it haunts many people, why, if this presence which I've called our true state, our natural state, why, if it is our natural state, doesn't it make itself felt, push away the obstructions? It doesn't do that. Obstructions need to be aware and understood directly without expecting any magical help from something or somebody. And with the clearing of an obstruction, there is just simple, unadorned presence, which reveals everything and yet doesn't mess with it. Doesn't create pictures of oneself, because in this deep meditation or deep awareness there is no self. That's why it can be so present, so deep. The personal is one knows not where. And this was said not to create an ideal state to want to get, but to state what is observed, being observed, factually, as factual as possible, in an ordinary human being. And this is not anything unique to some person. It may be possible for everyone. Because that's what we are at root, unadorned presence without personality, which is some superstructure floating on top. like the tip of the iceberg. And not to deny, in the personality we live and engage and relate and create, but to watch the imagery. So there's not this confusing energy of what I am, what I want you to see me as, etc. Are we here? With the wind. Cool air on the legs. We will end here for today.